Oh, hello. Okay. So, of course, as soon as I come on here, I'm getting that my desktop's always already full. So, surprise, surprise. We're just going to try rolling this anyway. Today is a fun episode. I mean, obviously, I choose these topics for the most part, so I always think they're fun, but it's one that I've been thinking about for a while, that I've sort of been kicking backwards and forward. That's not a thing. That I've been kicking around trying to figure out how I wanted to approach it. And I've talked about it like kind of piecemeal in other episodes, but I do think that today really gets nice and succinct and down to the point about two really big blind spots in the fitness industry and the reason that I started this podcast, the reason that I started my gym, Fit After 40. So we'll get in the weeds. I think this new setup works pretty well. It is very hot in here because it's very cold outside in this little room and it heats up fast. So if you just see me like panting and sweating, just know I'm very passionate. Okay, let's get this popping. Hang tight, get this recording going. Thanks for being here, y'all. Happy taking care of our body day. Okay. Hello, 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 and welcome to Fit After 40 Women's Fitness and Health Revolution podcast. Kinsey here, and I'm so excited to be diving into today's topic with all of you as always. Fitness has come a long way, but we still have some pretty major blind spots. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about why representation in fitness actually matters, how it's changed, but still's got a way to go, why every single body belongs in the gym, and the two biggest gaps holding people back from getting stronger and healthier, especially women in midlife. We'll unpack why access alone just isn't enough right now, and why knowing how to move matters more than just working out, and why menopause is still widely misunderstood in the fitness world. So if you've ever felt intimidated, overlooked, or unsure of where to start, this episode is for you. I love that fitness has become as accessible as it has. And I love that we are actually starting to see more and more representation in the fitness space, whether that's walking into a gym, but especially in like the marketing space of things. Because for a long time, one of my biggest issues with this industry in particular, especially when it came to marketing gyms, was that they'd only use for promotions, really thin, muscular, young bodies, when the truth is that fitness, building muscle in particular, is important for every human in this day and age. Even in my last management job, I worked for a corporate company started by a woman who's now in perimenopause, or possibly she's in post now. I don't know. I don't know her business. Point is, she's either in the transition or passing through it. And all of the approved copy that we would get to market our studio was still thin, muscular, young people. And I remember being on a business call with our marketing team, because we had one that worked like specifically with the Minnesota areas, asking if we could please get some marketing photos and videos with people that looked a little bit more like our members and our demographic. Because at this location that I worked at, it was primarily women with a median age of 45. But even then, the marketing team said that their hands were tied because they could only use what they had available in the corporate deck to promote. I am a pretty respectable, responsible, youngish lady, and I pride myself on my even headedness when it comes to disagreements, especially in the workplace. But this one might have accidentally tipped me into my snark. Now, listen, it wasn't the marketing team's fault because their hands were tied, right? They have what they have, but it was deeply problematic. Representation, as we know by now, is where inclusivity begins, primarily for people of all bodies, abilities, ages, colors. Insert your demographic here to feel like they're allowed to be included, especially in the world of fitness, where the messaging has been so clearly one lane for so long. In the now thousands of new client intakes and consults that I've done in the past 12 years, one of the number one objections I hear from folks new to fitness or newly back is that they're worried they're going to be judged or looked down upon by the people in class, or that they're not fit enough, what have you. Just this week at trivia, in fact, I was asked if I thought this person talking to me thought that they could do a certain group fitness class, or if they would just and I say this in quotes, embarrass themselves. And it breaks my heart. Every person can and will benefit from fitness. And the truth of the matter is, those of us who feel intimidated and have never worked out or haven't worked out in a while, we're the ones who are going to see the most benefit from showing up to take care of our amazing bodies. Like I said, this does seem to be changing. Even that gym that I worked at that I mentioned earlier has changed some of its promo videos within the last couple months to include things like older adults and different body sizes. But we, as an industry, have a really long way to go. And I'm happy to say that there are a lot of folks who seem incredibly passionate about this as well. Because fitness isn't about the shape of our body. I mean, sure, we will see body composition changes when we get consistent with those 2 to 3 strength training sessions a week, dialing up our protein, walking more in our day, working on our sleep, managing our stress, yada, yada, yada. But what's truly important is the health of our body. We've talked in multiple episodes why muscle is a non-negotiable for extending your health span and especially beneficial through the menopausal transition. I'm actually going to pop an episode in the show notes for you to check out after this one. It's all about muscle and menopause, which if you want a really deep dive, I'll talk about it a little at the end, but I'm going to be running another free menopause and muscle webinar to do on the Zoom this upcoming Wednesday, February 4th at 6:15 Central. So that's 7:15 Eastern. And wow, my brain just farted. 4:15 Pacific. I'll put the info in the show notes for you to book your spot and you can jump on live. There's a Q&A. I love this workshop. I've run it a bunch of times. But for now, I hope the takeaway of today's episode is that if you are someone who's had any of the thoughts that I've mentioned about not feeling comfortable getting started with fitness, not sure if fitness is for you, worried about feeling embarrassed or whatever, injuring yourself, etc., that I am hoping you take away from this that you belong and that you are abso-freaking-lutely worthy of your health. And if you ever need someone in your corner just to cheer you on, no strings attached, hop into my DMs at kinsey.does.the.fitness because you are so worth it. And it would be an honor to tell you that in Instaperson. So the fitness industry is doing its best, pockets of it, still has a long way to go. And that representation piece wasn't even one of the 2 industry blind spots I'm going to talk about today. So let's get back on topic, right? I am not going to bore you with like a full-blown history lesson, although it is pretty cool. But I do think it's important to note when we're thinking about these blind spots that the fitness industry as we know it today, even though it's so ingrained in our culture now, big box fitness studios, specialized equipment, mass marketing, consumer culture, online videos, has been around in recognizable form for only about 50 to 60 years. Gold's Gym in Venice, home of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a fun fact, my sister gym in the final years that I was a fitness director in LA was really the truly defining turning point as to like where we are now. And that hit the scenes in 1965. Running, aerobics, that can just sort of hop, skip, and jump onto the scenes by the 1960 or 1968 was when it first sort of became popularized. And I got to give credit to our girl Jane Fonda for taking the world by storm in the 80s and absolutely setting ablaze the at-home fitness trend. Group fitness, as we know it, didn't even hit the scenes until 1998 with, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to have you yell the name out loud. What group fitness do you think was the first boutique group fitness? For those of you who said Barry's Boot Camp, that's correct. Barry's Boot Camp came on the scenes in 1998, founded by Barry J. Fun fact, knew him too. Pretty delightful human. And its first location was in West Hollywood, which is my old stomping grounds. And when I read that, I was like, of course, group fitness was born in West Hollywood. It just makes so much sense. Way to go, WeHo. Barry, Mr. Barry J, is credited with pioneering the modern high-intensity interval training HIIT, which Side note, as you know, if you listen to this podcast, isn't actually true high intensity interval training, but is what it is commonly and incorrectly referred to. So all those like berries, Orange Theory, F45, base camp, those are all called HIIT training, but they're more just circuit style. So he's pretty much given the credit for starting that whole trend, the boutique fitness model that combines the strength and the cardio. And during each of these decades in our little fitness walk down memory lane, the focus was primarily on one thing, and that was size, right? Gold's Gym, primarily tied to bodybuilders, Jane Fonda, thinness, berries, getting that toned, sexy, lean look. I'm again, quotes here. So, fitness as we know it is like age wise, maybe a toddler. It's got a lot of growing to do, but it's willing and it is. And we've already come a really long way in the way that we study it, the way that we implement it, at least on my side of the dumbbell, right? So, for example, we have studies now on the relationship between strength training and bone preservation in postmenopausal women, exercise and its correlation to preventing dementia, putting diabetes into remission through strength training protocols, cancer prevention and therapy uh, while undergoing cancer treatments. Sorry, you guys, you know my brain. But the point is, we've started studying these things. Exercise for longevity, support through menopause. Dr. Gabby Lyon, who I talk about all the time, is just one example of these many, many humans who is focused on muscle-centric science and medicine. Not so that we can just go all get snatched, right? But so that we can get metabolically well. And in a society that suffers from 93.2% of us, myself included, of its population without optimal metabolic health, that is a pretty big deal and a worthy pursuit. And we are starting to understand more and more that the issue is less simply focused on fat, but on quality of muscle, right? So that is really the piece that we're starting to put together, that muscle quality and muscle health really dictates overall health. So, okay, Kinsey, we get it. We get it. Fitness is a baby and it just sort of started to walk. But what the H are the blind spots that you gaslit us with? Gaslit, I would never. I just get excited. The two blind spots that I am most concerned with as we begin to pivot fitness gratefully towards a more Gen Pop health span approach are one, teaching people how to get started the right way and in a sustainable way that can last over a lifetime. So we're not injuring out, we're actually seeing results, we're not burning out our central nervous system, right? And we're moving safely. And two, understanding women's health and the importance of muscle as we go through that menopause transition. Like I mentioned, the access to fitness these days is capital outstanding. You could join group fitness for under $250. You could join Planet Fitness for under $20. Shoot, you could do YouTube for a free 99. But just because we have access to something doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to know how to move correctly. And it doesn't mean that we are going to be programmed for effectively. Sure, right? We talk about newbie gains because I always have to throw it out here. Just getting started, having come from a place of not having done much or anything, your body will respond positively initially. But without systematically progressed exercises, you'll eventually plateau and you'll stop seeing desired results. And if we're trying to build muscle, we're gonna bonk out. The hard truth is that building muscle is hard. Whenever I do these menopause and muscle workshops, I always like to say that the effects that muscle has on the body to take over the place of like helping out with places where estrogen sort of leaves off in menopause seem almost too good to be true until you realize how much work it takes to build and sustain it. But especially hard when you have been at it for a while, right? The longer we've been working out, the harder it is to actually build new muscle tissue to widen those fibers. We'll talk about it more, or we talk about it rather, I should say, all the time on this podcast. But working out doesn't cut it without a smart program and without progressive overload and tracking and feeding your muscles, right? There's so many pieces. And that's not even the biggest blind spot, although it's pretty massive. And maybe I should have said three blind spots, but too late. We've come too far. The biggest blind spot in all of this is even if you were to be given the most perfectly immaculate progressively overloaded program, it doesn't teach you how to move. You have all the instructions, but they not the implementation, right? Just like you wouldn't try to sit down and teach yourself guitar, probably if you didn't want to waste your time, you'd hire a teacher. We need to change the idea that we can teach ourselves how to move correctly. We just don't know how, right? It's the blind leading the blind. I say it all the time, but there's nothing more valuable than investing in a trainer or Fit After 40, wink, wink, right? For the first 1 to 3 months, we are learning how to move safely and without pain. Then, once you've gone through that initial phase of having someone instruct you and teach you how to recognize those movement imbalances in yourself, when you know what muscles to lengthen, which to activate, how to make real time adjustments like correcting the angle of your foot to knee, dropping your shoulders, the scoop of the pelvis, because yes, you will learn all of this. Then you can know that as you move more autonomously on your own, if that's what you decide to do, that you're going to be doing it correctly and safely. You're not kind of just guessing, right? This is one of my favorite stories to tell about a woman in my Fit After 40 cohort. She is in her 70s and amazing. She's so amazing. I think I talk about her all the time. Low key lady crush, right? So she, when she first came in, had chronically would lift her shoulders into her ears. She had that scapular elevation. So much so that anytime we'd go into a move, the very first thing I tell her was drop your ears or drop your shoulders, drop your shoulders, drop your shoulders. And it was kind of like a parrot talking to her, right? I almost knew without even looking at her that I just have to cue drop your shoulders because for 60 probably years, her shoulders would just naturally kind of creep up. That's where she stored a lot of tension. She had a forward facing life for much of her life. It just is a natural muscle pattern that has developed over time. And she was starting to get it was later in the first month. And I remember she was kind of getting frustrated with herself. And she was like, will I ever even be able to do this for myself? Drop my shoulders on my own? Or will I always need someone to tell me to do it? And I was like, trust me, you're going to be able to start adjusting it on your own. We're now coming up to like 2.5 months in. And not only does she keep her shoulders down away from her ears far more frequently than she used to. When her shoulders do start to sneak up, like if she's in a goblet squat or an overhead press, if her shoulders start to sneak up, she's created enough awareness in her body that she can make the adjustment on her own. I only once in a while, and only when we're building in new skills, do I have to kind of remind her of that because her body's focusing on other things. But the point is, she could go out and do workouts on her own and have enough body awareness because she and I drilled the heck out of it that she could keep herself safe and make those adjustments on her own. That's why investing in the beginning is so worth it because you build that foundation where you know how to adjust in real time on your own. When you have these down, and it does take at least like 2.5 to 3 months to be able to really do this, I find kind of as just like a general timeline, then like I said, you can go out and make those on your own and with confidence that you're squatting correctly and not offloading in your knees or back, that your deadlift isn't rounding at your spine, that your shoulders, or that when you go into a shoulder press, you can do it without that scapular elevation, aka that you're moving safely and efficiently so that you're not wasting your time. And that's pretty darn cool. Even the best group fitness instructor isn't able to do this in a class full of students, which is why I always say invest in a personal trainer or small group personal training where there's 6 or less people. Because even if she could miraculously get to each and every student and adjust them until they were able to start doing it on their own, they would lose the repetition of working with her as a trainer because every class they go to, it has a different instructor. And while 75% of fitness teachers love to teach group fitness, 85% of them don't know how or don't care to adjust form. And no, those aren't exact numbers. Although honestly, I might just start tallying and I'll put money that I'm pretty darn close. I was a group fitness trainer who cared deeply about form because for years before I got certified and I was doing group fitness for fun, I thought your knees had to hurt to squat. And that was just part of like being yoked, right? So for like 2 years when I was just doing group fitness, my knees got worse and worse and worse. You could tell by my brace. So it started with just like that soft brace that was kind of a sleeve and you pulled it up. And then I got like a slightly more compressed version of the sleeve. And then I got like the one with the Velcro straps. And then eventually I was to one that had like PVC piping that held my tendons in place. And I was like, I guess I'm just totally a badass, right? But no, I just didn't realize that I was moving incorrectly. And I had never had a teacher who, I guess, knew how to help me move. I also didn't tell them that I was feeling pain, but I didn't learn how to do that until I got certified and was like, oh man, that I have been moving incorrectly and continuing to put my body out of alignment and reinforcing improper movement patterns, both inside and outside of the gym. I was lucky because that was in my early 20s. So my body was still very adaptable. We don't have as much wiggle room with that as we get older. We can always come back. It's never too late. It just gets harder and harder. The more ingrained these movements get and the older we get, we also the harder time we have with recovery. We have less lubrication in our tissues and our ligaments. So point is that I was a personal trainer, or excuse me, group fitness trainer, cared deeply about form from a personal place. And I'm great at adjusting form, sometimes maybe even borderline annoying, like I told you, with the woman in my cohort, shoulders down, right? Just repetition. But in a class full of 20 students or more, switching quickly between movement to movement to movement in an endurance based circuit workout, which is what the majority, if not all, group fitness is, not muscular build, but endurance. We've talked about this before too. It is impossible to spend enough time with each person to teach them how to do what this client is now doing without me even having to cue it. I'll also put in the show notes the episode that I did on the 4 types of exercise and the only one that builds muscle in case you want to get crazy. But it's not even just the lack of time with group fitness instructors that's the issue. It's that when you jump into a group fitness class, you jump into what's called the workout of the day or the WOD. So sorry. I just love that word, the WOD. WOD. Whatever it is, you're jumping into it no matter what your level is. And there have been so many times, especially in the past like 5 years, as I've gotten more and more experience with lots of different bodies, that I've tried to convince newcomers who have never even squatted before to skip a snatch and practice something like a box squat or a wall sit. And I get this. I absolutely get it. They feel too uncomfortable sticking out and boom, suddenly they're putting themselves in danger moving incorrectly through an advanced move that I wouldn't take a beginner through for like 6+ months, depending on how quickly they were building that mind body connection. And I just, it's something that's really hard now for me to be like, just stop, go sit on the wall. We need to build connection to your quads or we need to strengthen your core, right? Because it makes sense. It is a hard thing to be what feels like the only one in class doing something different, which again is why it might be worth working with someone where you feel like you have a little more one-on-one and even permission. Sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission because it doesn't work to hear it from someone else. And this isn't just group fitness, I should say. I've also worked with a lot of personal trainers within like a gym capacity, right? I've either run personal training programs or worked alongside of them. And there is a learning curve for personal trainers that I am absolutely responsible of as well, right? But a lot of trainers sort of have their, especially initially, style of training, and they pigeonhole everybody into it, even if it's not appropriate. Or they will do things like skip foundational steps so that they can get their clients to lift heavier or to do like cooler movements that maybe their clients really want to do, or that they feel like they're giving more value because they're doing these fun, challenging, make you feel dead type things. And sometimes these clients see changes in their body, but without that foundation, it also means that they're in chronic pain and don't have access to a certain range of motion. I remember talking to a CrossFit coach who is very like would be on a promotion for a gym, right? Just looks super cut, super strong, handsome guy. And I remember hearing him telling a client, and then he and I were talking, where he's like, Yeah, the thing about pain is that you just sort of learn how to work through it. I was like, "Come again? What now?" He's like, "Yeah, like my back's hurt for like 20 years and I just, I show up and I just push through it and you get a good workout and then you go home." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Okay, that's a methodology." Wow. Because I know it conceptually that there are people who quote unquote look fit but don't move well. But I forget that it means also times chronic pain. And to me, not being in pain all the time is one of the biggest reasons that I work out. Because when I stop working out or when I become pretty sedentary, especially in my body now, that's where I start to feel like if when I get sick, for example, right? And part of this probably has to do with systemic inflammation, but I like to think too that it's just like when I'm more sedentary for work or something, I start to feel it in my hips and in my low back and in my shoulders, right? Movement is medicine. And if that medicine is poisoning us, then it's not good for us. The point is, I have to hope this is changing. But as of now, with the exception of some truly like amazing personal trainers that I've known, it's pretty much non-existent in the fitness world. This like getting started with foundations. And I shouldn't personal training, you're much more likely to find this foundational type of uh structuring in the beginning. And that is wonderful. But it is, I did a whole podcast on this before on how to find a personal trainer. Make sure that you're asking questions before just pulling the trigger on working with them. In terms of group fitness, starting where your body should be starting to be most beneficial and to build up foundations and being able to correct your form in a way that it is correct your form, period, let alone correct your form in a way that it helps you repeat it is kind of non-existent. This is one of the major reasons, maybe even, no, it's one of the major reasons, probably, okay, I'm just gonna say probably even the biggest reason that I created Fit After 40 strength training for menopause, because this is such a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to not only getting your health goals, but moving well. My guarantee is that after your first 3 months, you will know how to move correctly, correct your own movement compensations and imbalances, and know how to prioritize a workout that actually builds muscle. And the cool part is, it's at less than half of the cost of what it takes to personal train with me. And if this sounds interesting, I have a couple spots left in both my St. Paul in-person cohort and my online cohort. But I'm excited to announce that the cohorts are starting to sell out because they're limited to 5 ladies. So our 6 and our 7 are pretty much full, but definitely reach out if you're interested. If you are just like raring to go and you're like, I'm done waiting, pull the ripcord. I'm going to drop a show note for you and you can save $100 off your first month this January. Info, like I said, is in the show notes. And if you're nervous to commit, which makes sense without trying first, check out the link where you can jump into a complimentary trial class. I just ask that you take a peek at everything before you request that, because I'm only really have time for people who are serious about getting started with taking care of their health. Because the truth is that at this point, a lot of women that I meet with are starting to even have a pretty good idea of what to do. They know they need to build muscle, and some of them even know they need to include power. Protein's getting talked about a little more. And if you're like them, you aren't stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you don't know where to start. So you keep returning to the same familiar patterns, but knowing what to do and knowing how to do it are two different things. So stop stalling out and start making progress the right way that you deserve. Peep the show notes and let's see if we're a good fit, because you're so stinking worth it. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about the second blind spot. Trainers. Most of us, we just don't know diddly squat about menopause. And this isn't because I think that women in perimenopause transition are like these precious little glass flowers. Quite the opposite. But it's because what works in our 20s, basically like throwing snit at the wall and stop drinking beer for a week and we're snatched, stops working somewhere in our mid 30s. And we got less time to fudge around, and it becomes much more important that we start to really think about preserving our health. We need to prioritize muscle in this transition and beyond because it takes the place of estradiol in many ways. Not one to one, but it helps to add important support from things like blood sugar regulation to supporting our immune system to anti-inflammatory properties and more. We need to build power because we start to lose power upwards of 7 to 8% after menopause. That's fast. That's fast. We need to prioritize protein to maintain muscle and bone, of which we can lose up to 15% of in perimenopause alone. And protein is just important for so many different reasons. We need to prioritize rest and recovery because our body is slower to recover. And we also have a tendency to have achier joints and muscles. Endurance classes like boutique fitness classes that we know and love aren't cutting building muscle and may even be burning us out because we're already inflamed and stressed. And if we're having chronic joint pains, then we jump on a treadmill, probably not going to rinse it all away, right? It's just we need to be more mindful. One of the things that happens when we lose estradiol is that we have more pain within our joints and our muscles and our ligaments, and we have less lubrication in those areas. They can get more brittle. We can lose range of motion. We can have frozen shoulders. Our bodies are changing. But the cool thing is, the things we need to prioritize in the menopause transition, these are technically things that we benefit prioritizing in all stages of life. And that's for every kind of human. That's for everybody. So you can really get started with them anytime, forever, and you'll see benefits. But when it comes to training women in menopause, we just aren't educated about it in the fitness world yet without seeking something out. I have been guilty of approaching training the wrong way. And since becoming a certified menopause coach, everything has changed for me. I do think and really believe this is going to change because I think that women in midlife and beyond are starting to learn about the importance of moving their bodies and gaining muscle. And I hope that trainers seek out the proper certification because I have NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, which is one of the best in the industry. And we didn't talk about menopause, right? We didn't even talk about pelvic floor. To be fair, it was a couple many years ago, but I would be surprised if it has a section yet. It might, but as of now, I had to find somewhere else to study, and thank goodness I did. So in the meantime, just be mindful of who you hire. Not feel free. It's our due diligence to ask questions about certification, ask questions about programming methodology, ask questions about experience. You can ask for client testimonials. All of these are perfectly fine and reasonable and smart things to do because the menopause marketing bubble is expanding real quick, right? Like I really started deep diving into perimenopause about 3 years ago. And I feel like, especially within the last year and a half, we see and hear menopause everywhere, which is great that we're talking about it, but it means that everyone and their goldfish is going to be trying to market. And a lot of trainers who are hopping on the menopause verbiage to cash in, they're not the trainer that you want in your corner. And you are worthy of a trainer who got into this because they care about your body and want to help you age vitally and with autonomy and extend your health span, right? Who understands what you're going through. You deserve to have someone in your corner who knows your body, who is willing to learn about your body, who designs workouts for what your body needs, listens to you when you show up after having stayed up all night long with hot flushes and can't lift your arm over your head because you have frozen shoulder. And good news, we're out there, right? You just have to do a little bit of work heading into it. And it's worth it. Because again, once you can really nail these foundations, you're pretty much smooth sailing. And we talk about it all the time, but it's worth saying again. Okay, there's two things worth saying again, right? The first one is slow and steady wins the race. Get started today and don't expect your outcomes to be 30 days from now, maybe not even 3 to 6 months from now, but know that in a year from now, in 5 years from now, in 8 years from now, when you are retiring and most of your friends have chronic back pain and don't feel comfortable taking an 11-hour flight to Europe, you are going to be moving well, pain-free. You're going to have a healthier heart. You're going to have stronger bones. You're going to have a better metabolism. You are going to have regulated blood sugar. You are going to have some body armor on your frame that is helping to protect your brain. You are boosting your immune system. You are living on your own because your body can make it upstairs pain-free and you don't wake up with aches and pains. Starting now pays off down the line in ways that we couldn't even imagine if we tried. And that is a beautiful thing. And the second piece, which I know I was going to say is, oh, yeah, my tangents. The second piece is I've said it a lot before, but this study makes me so happy. Studies have shown that you get up to 80% of the benefits from strength training in as little as 2 sessions a week, up to 90 in 3 sessions a week. And then a lot of us see diminishing returns. So you don't need to completely overhaul your busy, amazing life. You just need to find 2 to 3 hours. And I know it seems like you don't have time right now. I've heard it over and over, and I've heard it from people who on looking at their calendar, it's like, okay, it's going to be hard to find time. But when we can really water it down to just those 2 hours, if we prioritize it, we can do it. And if that means for you starting at just 2 30-minute sessions a week, that is going to go a long way, because the biggest mistake we can make is waiting for life to slow down or waiting to feel better or more ready for it. Life's not going to slow down. It's always just going to be busy. We're never going to feel ready for it, probably, and we're never going to feel better. I should say never. Wow, that was doom and gloom. Point is, how we feel right now, I have yet to see a person come in and be like, you know what? I'm ready. What normally happens is I see a person a couple years down the line and they go, I have to be here. I just got my blood work back, or I just got knee replacement, or fill in the blank. I'm now pre-diabetic, right? So it's become so much of a problem that we no longer have a choice. So making the decision while we're still healthy is one of the best gifts you can give yourselves. And I'm not going to tell you that you have to hard 75 it. I'm not even going to tell you to medium 75 it. Just start by trying to find 2 days a week. You can lift some weights and hire someone so you can do it the right way. And it is a confusing way to start, which is why I try to provide as many resources as I can. Fit After 40, obviously. But if you're like, I am not sure I want to pay for anything, or I'm not really sure I want to work with you, or I don't really understand what I need, I also try to give a lot of free resources because I want fitness and health to be accessible, like this podcast. But also, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am running a free menopause and muscle webinar on the 4th of February. That's a Wednesday, 6:15 Central Time. This is a workshop that I have run, I want to say like 5 or 6 times now, mostly in person. I've done one other webinar. It is a blast. I love this. I'm actually really, really proud of what it's grown into and become. Women afterwards tell me all the time they've gotten a ton out of it. We talk about our hormones while we are in our reproductive years, what they look like and how that changes through menopause. We talk about the importance of estradiol and how muscle swoops in as we start to lose it. We start to talk about the 3 S's of strength training. So we leave you with actionable steps to get started that day. And then, of course, if you come, you also get some bonuses. But the point is, this is a very low barrier to entry. All you have to do is just find the link in the show notes, totally free. Even if you can't make it, you get a replay, but please make it, because be honest with yourselves. How often do we watch the replay? Maybe you're better than me and you watch them every time, in which case, heck yeah, sister. But if you're like me, you got a lot of replays kicking around in your inbox. Point is, I hope that you walk away today feeling a little bit more inspired to get started moving your body, because while the fitness industry as a whole is still figuring out these blind spots, right? Getting people started the right way and teaching them how to use proper form and how to work out sustainably for forever, and understanding the menopause transition and how that relates to the importance of building muscle and power. There are a lot of us out there who are actively certified and actively working with women in midlife. Fit After 40, I have women starting at 28 all the way up into the 70s, right? So I work with women all across the spectrum of, all across their life spectrum. And we're amazing. Women's bodies are freaking amazing. So, yeah, they are complex, but guess what? They also create and push out life. So, what do you expect? Toaster oven, we're awesome. We're just like little magic machines. Anyway, I digress. Point is, check out the free menopause and muscle workshop. And as always, thank you so much for listening. If you got something out of this, please leave a 5-star review. And if you take 4 seconds just to go ahead and write a review, that goes a really long way. I don't know how much it helps with the algorithm anymore. I've heard it both ways, but honestly, it just lets me know that I'm providing value and not just sort of talking into the ether. And on that note, too, if you have any topics you would like me to cover, gosh, oh golly, I would love to hear them. You can shoot me an email at Kinsey at fitafter40.info, or again on Instagram, kinsey.does.the.fitness. And stay tuned because I am very excited. For the first time ever, the Fit After 40 Women's Fitness and Health Revolution podcast is going to have some guests on. So I've got a woman coming in to talk about sleep. She is awesome. It's going to be amazing. I've always wanted to do one on sleep, but honestly, I feel like I'm just learning so much about it myself. It's one of those 5 hierarchy of health that I am in right now, trying to figure out how to prioritize. So I'm excited. She's going to come on. She works with women in midlife, and her focus is on quality of sleep rather than quantity, because let's be real, very few of us can get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So how do we make our sleep better when we do get it? And then I have another woman named Brandy who is quickly becoming one of my favorite people. She is in the nutrition space and as a health coach. She and I are actually teaming up. She's got a health program called the Metabolic Reset coming up, which we will be talking about. But she is really the first time that I have met a peer in my space who I have access to, who I'm just so aligned with in terms of how we approach our health and wellness within the fitness and nutrition world. So she's also just a hoot and a half. She makes me laugh. So that one is going to be interesting because we're just going to have bullet points and we're going to kind of just shoot the cheese, and it could get goofy, could get weird. Stay tuned. But what it could and will get is a lot of really good information on how to take care of our incredible bodies in midlife through nutrition. So lots of fun stuff coming down the pipeline. I didn't do a check-in at the beginning of this one because I'll be honest, the world is on fire right now. So I'm just going to end the podcast with this. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your neighbors. Remember, changes start in our homes. So just take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones. Show up for your community. And we're getting through this one day at a time. I'm sending lots of love your way. And as always, if you need support, feel free to reach out to those spots that I mentioned earlier. All right, this one went on way too long with my wrap up. I adore you, and we will chat next week. Until next time, take care of your amazing bodies and brains because you're so stinking worth it. Aroo! Okay, my little YouTubes. Like I said, I also wore my hair down for the first time in a long time, so that feels crazy. Yeah, thank you so much for watching on the YouTube. As always, I love feedback. So if there's things that you would like topics touched on, fitness, nutrition, women's health, menopause, favorite dog breeds, I don't know, hit me up. Spoiler, it's a mutt. So what can I say? All right. Thank you so much. As always, I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous